So basically, imagine insulin as this key that allows the cell to take up glucose. So you eat food, food breaks down, the carbs break down to glucose, glucose in the blood. You need the insulin to allow the cell to take up the glucose to use as energy. Well, if you don't have insulin, it's just going to sit there and your blood's going to get thicker and syrupy and it's not going to move as well. And the nutrients aren't going to get to where they need to go and the oxygen won't transport as well. And you start to feel disgusting.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepeck, your host and health coach, here with you every week for Wellness Without the Weirdness. And I want to get right into it today because November is Diabetes Awareness Month. And while so much of what we talk about on Salad with a Side of Fries supports type 2 diabetes, it also supports type 1 because balanced blood sugar is balanced blood sugar. And yet, I think it's important that we're clear about what's what. So to dig deeper with us, I have an incredible guest. He's a registered dietitian, certified diabetes care and education specialist, and strength coach who has lived with type 1 diabetes for more than 25 years. He's also the founder of Your Diabetes Insider, a team of registered dietitians and diabetes experts who specialize in helping people living with type 1 and type 2 diabetes achieve amazing blood sugars while eating great food and becoming the best versions of themselves. When not helping the diabetes community, he's spending time with his wife, Amelia, his diabetes alert dog, Roscoe P, traveling, going to sporting events, and working out. Without further ado, I give you Ben Tzeel.
What's going on? This is amazing. Also, I love that intro and I'm so grateful for that.
You're welcome. I'm so excited you're here.
I'm so hyped. This has been a long time in the making too.
I know. And we have this Michigan connection.
Yes.
Fill everybody in. Your dad and I went to the same high school.
Yes, literally, which is absolutely insane because what are the odds of that? My whole family's from Detroit area, which is insane.
I know.
So,
but for what it's worth, I didn't go to high school with your dad.
No,
right.
Definitely not. I would say my dad was there way long ago. But it's just, to me, just how small of a world it is just insanity.
For sure. For sure. So we'll start with more of your story beyond your family being, from the Detroit area. We just have one more thing to do here. We have to tell our members what they're getting this week. So friends, join us in the Happy Healthy Hub. Being a member of the Hub is the next best thing to working with me as your health coach. You get a recipe each week delivered to your inbox, curated articles and additional discounts from me and our partners. You get interview episodes like this one in full video, including behind-the-scenes content, a community with the ability to post and comment on others' posts, plus access to the 24/7 AMA or Ask Me Anything to target your specific questions or challenges. You can upvote other people's questions, see past Q&As, and so much more. All of this, by the way, is yours for just $12 a month, or you prepay the year and get 2 months free. So your recipe this week is for easy beef chili. This is a great one to make once and then have some for today and later. Freeze it in smaller containers so it's easy to thaw. It's so hearty and has so much flavor. I don't know. I think this one might become a winter staple this year. So for this recipe, plus the episode in full video, access to your community chat and the 24/7 Ask Me Anything, go to asaladwithasideoffries.com/membership. From there, you click subscribe now, follow the prompts to enter your payment info, create your login to access the hub, and all of your benefits. Remember, you're going to asaladwithasideoffries.com/membership, or just click the link in the episode notes because that's super easy. And remember, this supports your health plus this show so we can keep doing this together every week. All right, Ben, you were diagnosed with type 1 at age 7.
Yes.
I'm so curious what that was like for you, what doctors told you and your family. Like, what were your expectations at that point? How did that hit?
It was rough because when you mentioned Michigan, my whole family, we had taken a vote as a family if we were going to move and go to Wisconsin or if we were going to stay. I voted to stay. Everyone else voted to leave. A month into living in Wisconsin, I get news that I have diabetes.
So it was obviously Wisconsin's fault.
It was 100% Wisconsin's fault, and I still hold it against Wisconsin.
Still all the love to all of our listeners in Wisconsin.
Yes, all the love to Wisconsin people, but that's definitely what caused it. But regardless, I mean, I didn't know anything. I was 7. I was trying to figure out life and making new friends. And fortunately, my dad does work in the medical field. So he started to see the signs of type 1 where I was losing weight, which as a 7-year-old, you don't have to lose a lot of weight for it to be substantial. I was peeing seemingly every 5 seconds, drinking a ton of water, and I was pretty irritable. But a lot of those things could have been chalked up to not being happy about moving. But irrespective, they got the blood work. We went to Six Flags, the first and only time I've ever been to Six Flags, and walked in the gates. 10 minutes in, my dad gets the call, Ben has diabetes. So suddenly the entire day takes on this absolutely somber environment of, cool, what's next? And I do go to the children's hospital where they start to tell me, you're not going to be able to eat these foods. You won't have the birthday treat. You can't play sports. You're going to have to watch everyone. You can't be strong. And it really bothered me. Like the first 2 or 3 years, I'm sure you can imagine, the first 2 or 3 years, what can I do? Like, what am I going to be doing with my life? And it got really old really quickly.
For sure. For sure. It reminds me of, we did an episode about, healthcare 1.0, 2.0, and now 3.0. And this is like textbook old school approach. The other thing is that it reminds me, we did a nutrition nugget called nocebo, where just like placebo, right? Where we can think something's going to work, so it does. Nocebo happens when your healthcare provider kind of says, I don't think this is going to work. And then it doesn't. And it's kind of like, just setting that expectation, the self-fulfilling prophecy of you can't be a quote unquote normal kid.
Yeah.
Go live your life. Peace out.
And that's what they effectively kept saying of, oh, like you're going to watch everyone. So for 2nd grade, 3rd grade, most of the time, with the exception of my own birthday, I'm watching everybody else having the cupcake or the cookie or the brownie or whatever. And I'm just sitting there chilling and wondering, will I ever get to participate? And over time, like, I'm not going to say I became that defiant kid, but did start to get to me. And I said, I'm going to figure out how to play sports. I like them too much. I'm not going to sit on the sidelines. And I started to figure it out, got into high school and went to the dietitian and said, hey, I want to gain muscle. I want to be strong. I'm playing baseball. What do I need to do? And they gave me, you ready for this? They gave me a meal plan for an offensive lineman.
What?
Right. I wish I was making this up. Like, I'm at this point, 5'10", 165 pounds. They are giving me something for someone who's 330 pounds. They said, oh, this is for sports. This is good. I'm like, this is for someone double my size playing a completely different sport than I am. And that just stuck with me. And that led partially to why I became a dietitian. Because if that's the info I'm getting, and that's supposed to be the best of the best info, what is everybody else getting?
For sure. For sure. So what did you end up doing that created your transformation? Because you did. You played sports. You figured it out.
So effectively, I realized I loved working out. I loved sports. I love training. And I figured out food is really just the X factor of the intersection of blood sugars as well as sports, right? Because you have to fuel your body for sports. You have to fuel your body for great blood sugars. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to go get a PhD in diabetes and nutrition and do everything on that front. And it'll be great. And I'll change the world. And then I realized I did everything but my dissertation. And I realized I want to deal with people and being able to help people now instead of proving something that's going to take me 20 years to bring the message to the world. So I switched, became a dietitian, and then figured, hey, I'm already a strength coach. I'm a dietitian. Why not become the person that can fill that void that I didn't have growing up? Because I know it wasn't just me. There's thousands of people with diabetes who are athletes who don't have answers, and thousands of people just want to live a normal life, hundreds of thousands, if not millions. So then I said, yeah, you know what? Let's start Your Diabetes Insider. And then eventually, gratefully, was able to grow the team, and we're able to impact thousands and thousands of lives on the regular. And for that, I'm grateful. But that's where it all stemmed from, was I kept getting told no and said, how am I going to make this happen?
Yeah. And I have to imagine too, especially in such formative years, but even for your parents, right? For everyone, stigma is real. I think, type 1 versus type 2, we'll talk about in a second. And there's certainly some confusion there. And there's stigma with both. Do you watch Love is Blind?
Everyone keeps telling me to watch it because there's someone with diabetes.
No. One of the guys has a kid with type 1.
That's what it is.
But even still, I hesitate to even say what's coming to my mind, but they act like it's this dramatic death sentence. And it's like, hold up, that is not the reality of this. And now here we are 25 years past when you were diagnosed, more or less. So what was it like for you and your family? And what do you see now with your clients as far as that stigma and navigating, workplace and relationships and all of that kind of stuff?
It was, I think, really, not let's say rougher. I think it was, for me, it was really rough because the technology didn't exist. Like there were no continuous glucose monitors. I did get an insulin pump as a kid. I was still in elementary school, but I was one of the first people. Like I had to switch where I got my care from because the children's hospital would not put kids on a pump. Like it was that new at the time, which is wild. Nowadays, you get diagnosed 3 months in, you've got a pump. But it was a very different time. And I think what built on top of that was people, to your point, didn't understand. So I would get the constant, oh, well, my grandpa has diabetes and their leg got cut off, or my grandma went blind. And I'm like, cool, I'm 9 years old. This is fantastic. But what really, really hit me, and it was just atrocious. And I feel like the story is very pertinent and it drove me nuts at the time and it still drives me nuts. But I was 12. My town was relatively small. There was one travel baseball team in the entire area. And I was really good friends with most of the people on the team. I was, doing the tryout. Everything was great. The coach's kid was like one of my best friends at the time. And he saw the roster. And he's like, you're going to be on the team this year. It's going to be so great. I'm so excited. And so I was really excited. And so to celebrate, we all went to Dairy Queen, like me, the coach's kid, and a few others. Not a big deal, except for all the adrenaline and everything else. My blood sugar was 468. For
Yikes.
perspective, your blood sugar is supposed to be, air quotes, 80 to, let's just say 150 to make an easy number. It was way out of range. And so me being 12 thinking, oh, I'll be a self-advocate. I'll tell the guy, hey, I'm going to take my ice cream to go. My blood sugar is too high. Well, that was probably one of the worst decisions I could have made because the next day I get the phone call mysteriously, hey, sorry, bud, you're not on this team. So they completely just took it, even though the kid had seen the clipboard, said, you're on it. We're good. Everyone's excited. The dad was really excited. It became this, oh, there's a medical liability here. And that followed me for the next 5 years, like even into high school. And so that is, I think, the stigma that really hit me of he's a liability, similar to what you're talking about with the show. The kid's a liability. He's a liability. There could be a problem here. We can't deal with this. That was what really hit me.
What a shame. That's all I can say. What a shame.
I think then it made me feel like I had to work doubly as hard as everybody else just to get the same recognition. Because otherwise, if it wasn't like, oh, my talent blows everyone else out of the water, well, if it's me and someone else, they don't have diabetes, therefore you get what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's part of why we want to have this conversation, especially during Diabetes Awareness Month.
Yes.
Perfect timing. So let's talk about it, right? Type 1 versus type 2. Go for it.
So type 1, it's genetic, right? There's very rare situations where it's not, but effectively there's some sort of autoimmune situation that starts triggered by something. Typically people expect to be a virus of some sort. And it starts off this cascade that effectively destroys the beta cells of the pancreas that make the insulin. So your body doesn't make insulin anymore. You have to get it from an external source, whether you're taking injections, whether you're on an insulin pump, you have to get it for the rest of your life from this external source. Type 2 is a little bit different, and where the pancreas is working, it's still making insulin, but it can't keep up with the demand of the body. So it's trying, it's working in overdrive, it's really trying, and it's just not keeping up. So blood sugars are running higher. So that's why you get some of these oral medications that can make the insulin work a little bit better. And then at some point, it's worked too hard for too long, and eventually it burns out. Then you need insulin from an outside source. So you still have some, I don't want to call it hope per se, but you have an opportunity to right the ship in type 2. In type 1, that's it. Once you have it, that's it.
And I think what's so important about what you talked about is not just the different function, right? So biologically, different functions are happening in the body, and the medical management is very different between them.
Very. Because with one out of the gate, it's you're on insulin, whether you like it or not. The other one is you don't have to be on insulin unless I don't want to say allow it to progress that far, but to an extent, one could argue you allow it to progress that far.
Right. And in both scenarios, we have options and we have lifestyle choices, which we're going to talk about in a second. But I think potentially maybe the missing piece of this conversation is that people don't understand how insulin works. Walk us through it. Like, pretend we're all you at 7 years old. How does insulin work?
So basically, imagine insulin as this key that allows the cell to take up glucose. So you eat food. Let's just say you eat carbs in this example. Food breaks down. The carbs break down to glucose. Glucose in the blood. You need the insulin to allow the cell to take up the glucose to use as energy. Well, if you don't have insulin, it's just going to sit there and your blood's going to get thicker and syrupy and it's not going to move as well. And the nutrients aren't going to get to where they need to go and the oxygen won't transport as well. And you start to feel disgusting. And that's just kind of what happens when there's not enough insulin there. So whether you have type 1 or type 2, if you have a blood sugar that's well out of range, you're likely feeling very similar symptoms. It's just the etiology of how you get there is different. Because one of them, okay, you just don't have enough insulin being made in the type 2 world. Type 1, there's just no insulin. If you don't put insulin into the system, there's no insulin in the system at all.
Yeah. And that means, right, then a lot of these other things that we hear about as, caused by or coming from insulin or, diabetes, it's essentially a cascade of when we can't get these nutrients out of the blood into the cell. And then the blood is essentially, as you said, thicker, not functioning, not able to do its job. And there's a piece, too, I always talk about with type 2 of understanding that insulin is there. We're not responding to it.
Very accurate.
Right. And so for people to understand why some of this stuff is different, and neither of which is inherently a death sentence or the end of life as you know it.
No. You can thrive. We've seen it thousands of times with type 1 or type 2. It's just a matter of, are you willing to put in just that smidgen of effort on the nutrition, the activity, and the other lifestyle factors front to make it so your life is pretty much normal. The only thing you can't do, as far as I know, is become an astronaut, which at 7 was actually kind of depressing, but I've kind of gotten over it as time has gone on, right. So I'm not too worried anymore.
Perfect. All right. So with that foundation and exactly what you're talking about, I want to talk about the tools, nutrition, movement, how we live our lives well, even with a diabetes diagnosis. Let's pause here, though, to highlight our partner for this episode. You know how the wellness world just loves to bury us in rules, guilt, and noise? I wrote the antidote. So my book, Uncomplicating Wellness, Ditch the Rules, Quiet the Noise, Reclaim Your Life, is for anyone who's ever felt like they're doing everything right, in air quotes, but still not feeling well, not feeling energized, and not seeing the results of all of that effort. This isn't another diet book or a plan. It's a new lens. It's fries with your salad, as we say, part science, part permission, and zero guilt. We'll clear the chaos, cut out the perfectionism, help you rebuild trust in the one expert who truly matters. That's you. So if you're ready to stop chasing wellness and start living it, grab your copy of Uncomplicating Wellness. Let's ditch the rules, quiet the noise, and help you reclaim your life. Find Uncomplicating Wellness wherever books are sold or text the word book, B-O-O-K, to 833-804-0500 to learn more with a clickable link. Again, text the word book, B-O-O-K, to 833-801-0500. Let's move from exhaustion to clarity, from fear to discernment, and from chasing healthy to truly feeling well on your own terms. Okay, Ben, a key factor for people living their best lives with type 1 requires, nutrition, exercise, diabetes education, all of those pieces. Where should we start? We did a little bit of the diabetes education piece already. So should we go to nutrition?
I'd say nutrition. I always joke, nutrition's 80% of the blood sugar.
Agreed.
So if you don't understand it, it's going to be a problem.
Awesome. Go for it.
Everything you need to know in 30 seconds. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
So, God, if it was that easy, that would be amazing. In a nutshell, with nutrition, it comes down to, of course, understanding the carbs, like we talked about before with the insulin, because those two go hand in hand. But then also understanding fat and protein have their role. So both are going to steady blood sugars. Protein ideally going to prevent the blood sugar from going as high when you're having a meal. And then the fat ideally keeping your number steady, which can work in your favor because, hey, you have a little bit of fat, your number may stay at 130. But on the flip side, if you have a very high carb, high fat meal, your blood sugar could go high and then sit very high for hours on end. So understanding how the different macronutrients work within the blood sugar lens, but then also knowing, okay, when you're having a meal, is your medication matched to your carb intake? If you're on insulin, do you have an insulin to carb ratio? If not, one of the first things your team should be helping you with, and understanding, hey, if you're going to have, you don't need to be limited to 30 to 45 at each meal or 45 to 60. You can have 12, you can have 97. Like, as long as you have the rest of the foundation laid, you should be good as a starting point.
So say more on that because, we talk about pairing our foods together all the time and understanding, a lot of times when people hear, oh, certain fruits and vegetables are a no-no because they have too much sugar or those kinds of things. Can you speak to the reality versus, I think, the fear-mongering?
I think the fear mongering is really around carbs in general, because everyone thinks, oh, carbs are the worst. They make your insulin go up if you don't have diabetes. And if you do, then they're going to make your blood sugar rise. And the reality is, if I'm not going to go out here and say you can eat anything you want as long as you dose for it, because I feel like that's a very, very a statement that's taken way out of context. Oh, you can have the giant milkshake every single day. No, don't do that. But if you do it smart and you say, okay, hey, I'm going to have protein every time I eat in some capacity, ideally a quality source. I'm going to have some sort of fiber every time I eat, because that will also help blunt the blood sugar spike. And I'm going to do my best to have some sort of fruit or vegetable for the potassium side, because the micronutrients are extremely important. You will be in a better spot than 90% of people living with diabetes. Quite frankly, probably 90% of the people living on the planet in general.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Will you also speak to the role that gut health plays in this equation?
It's a good one. So yeah, and I will be the first to say I am not the best gut expert on the planet, but I can say that blood sugars and gut health and all of these things, first of all the sugar, alcohols, sugar-free, this and that, and sweeteners will wreak havoc on your gut. So please just eat the real thing. Dose what you need to dose, have the protein with it, and just eat the real thing. I'd rather you eat the real Reese's than the pretend Reese's, because otherwise you'll live on the toilet for the next 3 days. So that would be, the first thing I would say. But second, from
Every
a gut health,
gimme's got a gotcha.
exactly, yes. And the what was it? Smart sweets.
Oh,
If you
yes.
ever need entertainment, go read the Amazon reviews. Oh my God, they're a riot.
That's
That
like
should
the
tell you-
Instagram comments.
Yes, just don't do that. Like, I say to people, like, it was just Halloween, right? Oh, what we got sugar-free candy. No, like as a child, everyone tried to give me sugar-free candy. Please don't. I'll eat 3 of the regular Reese's and be done. But that would be one thing. Gut health is what we were talking about. Back to the reality. The big thing here is the artificial things are not going to be great, but also when your gut health is messed up, that can impact your blood sugar. That also can potentially impact all the, hedonic pathway in the brain and the pleasure sensors. Then you want certain foods that are not going to be as great for your blood sugar. So it becomes this massive, again, cascade. The biggest thing is, from a blood sugar standpoint, also when your blood sugars are up and down a bunch, your gut motility slows down. You don't digest things as quickly. It leads towards gastroparesis, and that's a whole nother wild thing. So the moral of the story is keep your blood sugars happy and don't eat artificial sweeteners, and you'll probably be in a better spot.
Perfect. And then you also mentioned potassium, and that
Yes.
brings up, a piece of micronutrients, electrolytes, and these are important for everyone because we all have human bodies that we're listening. Frankly, even animal bodies have the same situation. But speak to kind of the role of those, especially in relation to type 1 and type 2, even.
I think the biggest thing, and I always joke with people, everyone's like, Ben, why is your favorite nutrient potassium? But I'm like, because it has such a massive influence on blood sugar, as I'm literally, here's potassium, yay. But like literally potassium from a hydration standpoint is huge, because most people, sodium's not a problem. You go get something out of the pantry, you get something, at a restaurant, your sodium's totally fine. And that's great. But most people are neglecting the fruit and veggie side, which is potassium, but they're also just not getting enough, even if they do emphasize it. So from a blood sugar standpoint, what often happens is you end up with a high blood sugar. That's already going to throw everything in your body out of whack. Every single process will be dysregulated, but your electrolytes are going to be thrown out of whack as well. And there have been many times in my life and then in patients' lives where they're sitting 220, nothing happens. They hydrate and they have potassium and they come right back down. And I'm not saying it's the catch-all saves everything, but it helps a ton. And I don't have a scientific basis. I just know that the electrolytes get thrown out. And when you get potassium in the picture, you do much better.
Yeah. And for what it's worth for everybody, please tell me that the salt in your electrolytes, if you are using an electrolyte powder, is not the same salt that is coming in all of the processed foods and things like that, that you are getting one that is using a high quality salt loaded with minerals. Okay, let's talk about movement, because exercise and movement also play a tremendous role in bringing blood sugars back into normal ranges, or healthy ranges, I should say.
Yes. And so with that, I'd say anyone with diabetes, really anyone without as well, but especially if you have diabetes, if you want insulin sensitivity to be maxed out, meaning that your insulin is going to work at its most effective level possible, resistance training, so strength training, and some sort of cardio movement, whether that's, intervals, whether that's just walking, something in combination with strength training is going to do wonders, because at baseline, just having more muscle on your body means you're more insulin sensitive. In addition, one single bout of activity is going to raise your insulin sensitivity for 24 to 72 hours. So if by definition, you suddenly do this consistently, you are constantly more insulin sensitive. And then at baseline, you're constantly more insulin sensitive. You're going to win both. And then don't forget walking. Like we'll tell people, hey, set a step goal. And they say, why? Because your body starts to adjust to a certain amount of activity. And once you're there are days I don't get, let's say I'm at 3,000 steps and I'm used to hitting 10,000. Until I get closer to my target, I'm insulin resistant all day. And then suddenly it goes right back to normal, my blood sugar, because I wasn't on top of my activity.
Yeah, it's so interesting because there's so many different guidelines out there about how much activity and how intense it needs to be. And I often tell people, stop living by the shoulds. And what we're hearing from you is the power in steps and mixing in that, more vigorous, moderate intensity. So with you and your clients, what do you recommend as sort of how much resistance training, yes, the walking every day, to how often we really want to get that more intense cardio session?
I mean, if you told me that someone said, hey, I've never worked out in my life and I want to start now, if you told me 2 sessions of strength training, ideally full body, and 1 session of, I don't care if it's elliptical, walking, biking, whatever, not walking, jogging, biking, whatever, it gets your heart rate up. And that's all you start with per week. I'm totally cool with that. The goal in a perfect world, in my mind, is we can get you to 3 to 4 lifts per week that are consistent, that are pretty good amount of effort. And then 1 heart pump in, I'm getting my heart rate up really high session per week. That should be ample. If you want to do more, by all means, go for it. But you also have to rest. And people sometimes go to the opposite end of the spectrum. They try to do too much, and that never ends well either.
Exactly. And then to your point of muscle, right? Body composition.
Yes.
Muscle is our insulin sensitivity.
That's a very good way of putting it. And that's also part of why I left PhD school, because I got into a lot of fights about that topic.
Wait, say more. I can't let you drop that and then move
say,
on.
I don't know if I've actually ever shared this, but yeah, I would very often, we'd talking about designing a study. They'd say, oh, use BMI. I'm like, no one cares about BMI. Well, no, use BMI. I'm like, no. They're like, oh, well, it's a great measure.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Because at the time, I was my absolute biggest, but I was also very, very much stronger than I am now. And I was like, I would be classified as nearly obese. And I'd like to think that at that time. And I clearly don't have the same body composition as somebody who, would be by the standards of this study. So that's absolutely not going to happen. And there was a lot of butting heads. My advisor was the chair of the department at the time. And there's a lot of butting heads. A lot of people did not like that I would speak up about that. And I never let it go for 2 straight years. Every single time I would just be like, nope, this is BS. So the reason, your exact response is exactly why I kept saying it.
Yep.
And that just contributed. It wasn't the only reason, but yeah, I get why people like using BMI. I think BMI is a crock of shit. Sorry.
You're not alone. Everybody go back to our episode, BMI is BS.
Good. That makes me so happy.
Yes. I also wrote a TED Talk about BMI is BS, but then the pandemic happened, so I never gave it. But
you need to do it.
Yeah.
Please do.
All right. You also started to talk about, today with the technology that we have, whether it's insulin pumps and constant glucose monitors and all the different gadgets and wearables, I want to talk about the tools, both the ones that are super supportive and the ones that maybe are creating more stress and confusion than they're worth.
Okay.
So where do you want to start?
I feel let's start with the positive ones.
Awesome.
With the fun ones.
Okay.
I mean, I would say, so people hear often, like you mentioned, the continuous glucose monitors, testing your blood sugar every 5 minutes for you, because I didn't have one the first 14 years of my diagnosis. So every hour and a half, 2 hours, I'm pricking my finger, got real old, real fast to carry this thing around. And way back when I was diagnosed, it used to take a whole minute. Like there was an ad ticker at the bottom of my meter talking about classes at the children's hospital. I'm like, first of all, these are like 8 months ago. Second, this is terrible, but I digress. So yeah, those are huge. One, they're usually supposed to last 10 to 14 days. So that's a long time of knowing every 5 minutes, oh, my blood sugar is, here, let's do a live look. And look at me, big model person with diabetes. Look at me being 96. Anyways, I now know I'm 96. Pumps. Insulin pumps are great because instead of injecting every time you eat, you're doing ideally once every 3 days. You can turn down your insulin. You can turn up your insulin. You can take extra. It's just a convenience factor. There's algorithms that can work in conjunction with the CGM to make your life easier. Some people love them. Some people hate them. they're not like a guaranteed method of success. A lot of people think the pump does everything, but it won't. It'll do like 75% of the work, but you still have to have some sort of active role. Those two things make life way simpler than way back in the day, especially if the algorithm works well.
Awesome. I'm sorry, I digress a little bit because this is more with type 2. With a lot of my clients, first of all, I love a constant glucose monitor. I love that data. And the thing, I'm curious if you see this, but part of why we do what we do is to help people interpret the information that is coming at us. Because simply having the numbers doesn't necessarily translate into understanding them.
Yes. 100%. Yes. Because like we'll spend most of our sessions with patients breaking down, hey, here's the trend. For example, at lunch, 5 out of 7 days, you dropped. Let's talk about what happened beforehand and then what we need to adjust. Granted, someone without diabetes doesn't have to worry about the insulin idea. But for us, hey, maybe it's just adding more carbs. Maybe it's removing something else. But it's one thing to have knowledge, but it's one thing to have knowledge and not do anything with it. And then it's just depressing.
Exactly. And I find too that the difference maker for a lot of those, is if you're not working with somebody who's going to sit down and look through it with you, is the interface that your monitor works with. So, we did a partnership with NutriSense. I highly recommend their interface. I think it's one of the best that I've played with. And then the other piece with what you were talking about with pumps, and even with my type 2 clients, especially as we're making so much progress, one of the things that I recommend them talking to their physician about is, can they give you a type of insulin that we can better adjust so that we're not always pumping you full of this max dose, that we can, play in real time to keep you stable versus having this blanket, this is what I get.
Right. When you're on multiple daily injections, or just in this case, hey, you're on a basal insulin, you take 30 units, you've got 30 units. But with the pump, hey, the next 2 hours needs to go down. I'm about to be active. There you go. Now you're back up to normal. That level of depth and granularity, I think, is huge for blood sugar management.
And just adding to this as things pop to my mind, I also think too, we would expect to see blood sugar rise on your glucose monitor during activity.
Yeah, depending on the activity. Yeah.
And that often freaks people out.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Yes. I didn't know about this either for probably the first 10, 12 years. And I remember one day I was deadlifting super heavy and I went from 90 to 370. And I was like, holy God, what just happened? And then I realized did some digging. I'm like, oh, yeah, your liver dumps glucose when it thinks you need energy. So these things are normal, but they're not expected by most people. Or even sprinting will do it too, by the way.
Yes. And I like to think of it too as we want the body to respond. That's actually a fantastic sign that we are doing these things, the body is responding and doing what it's supposed to do. It's releasing fuel so that your muscles and your cells can do what you're asking of them.
And the key is just if it overshoots, right? Because obviously in certain situations, when your number goes really high, it overshoots. But on the flip side, the fact it's doing its job is what we want it to be doing. And even adrenaline, I feel like, is one major thing that people don't think about. It does the same thing. You could be watching a sporting event like, the Vikings-Lions game, and suddenly adrenaline's through the roof and your blood sugar just skyrockets. The game ends and your blood sugar comes all the way down. You didn't do anything. You were just sitting there.
Agreed. All right. And then what are some that you think maybe are overlooked or not as helpful as they might be?
In terms of actual tech, like wearable things?
Or even some of the tools that are provided for type 1?
I think something that not enough people know about that I wish more people did, and you could argue this is a tool, you could argue this is an insulin, but I think the inhalable insulin, Afrezza, and then I also think the inhalable glucagon, the Baqsimi, those are massive because most of the time you think of, okay, insulin, you're injecting, you're using a pump. The inhalable stuff, again, obviously you have to, go through your doctor, etc. That stuff kicks in way faster because it goes to your lungs and it's out of your system faster. So if you're having a stubborn high blood sugar, very helpful to help your blood sugar come down. And then the Baqsimi, the glucagon, everyone thinks, oh, glucagon, God forbid you have a seizure. Someone needs to, open up this kit and mix this stuff. And that's scary. Well, this is, hey, you're still, functional. Your blood sugar is really dangerously low. Cool. You're done. It's nasal. My bad. It's not inhalable, nasal, but whatever. It's a heck of a lot easier than somebody else having to deal with it while you're passed out and someone else is freaking out. So those are two things I think that are extremely underrated.
Awesome. And then you brought up this idea of the people around us who are supporting the person with type 1 diabetes. And so what do you think it's important for the supporters and the allies to know and understand about, working with the person diagnosed with diabetes, or even the technology that, the person with diabetes is using?
I think it has to be in the case, if we go like, spouse, partner, etc., that should be a conversation that's had early on. So you're on the same page. Because if they're not willing to be on board somewhat, they're probably not going to be the person for you. But more importantly, knowing and expressing, this is the involvement I want you to have. Hey, if my number's doing blank and I'm not doing well, not a dangerous situation, but just my blood sugar is super high or I'm super low, this is what I want you to do. And being very transparent and very clear so they know, hey, this is my role. I'm not going to overstep. I'm not going to nag, but this is what I know to do. I don't think enough people have those conversations early on. So then a situation arises and the person with diabetes snaps, the other person doesn't understand why. And then there could be some sort of nasty downfall because of that situation.
Yeah. And will you give a couple of examples of what might that look like?
Oh, this is good. So I'm really fortunate. My wife's a pharmacist. So when we met, she ironically had like a rotation in her pharmacy, training that she had to wear an insulin pump with saline, but an insulin pump, she knew what it was like. So I'm like, this is great. You can dose me. This is awesome. But same time, right? She still understands that there's times where my blood sugar goes high and I don't want to be around anybody. And so she knows, hey, if my number's high, not to let me be, but hey, if I haven't hydrated, maybe she'll come through with some water, but she knows, hey, I've corrected, kind of let me do my thing and I'll be fine. But there's also times where, if my blood sugar is low, hey, did you take the stuff? Hey, I'm good. Awesome. She knows to let it go, because if not, there could be a situation, and we've made videos doing like parodies of this. My blood sugar is 50. Oh my God, here's half the fridge. I got you. And it's like, I'm literally just chilling. I already took my glucose. I'm fine. So having that understanding is, I think, really important. I know the episodes I've done with her on my own podcast of what it's like to date and, being married, those always do well because people are just intrigued to know the other side.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more behind the curtain. Like, when did you guys have that conversation? I assume early on because it's part of what you both do. But
yeah, so we are, telling the real story. So we met on Hinge. So she already had an idea because she could see in a couple of my pictures, like my CGM's loud and proud right there. So the first date, she actually dosed my pump I think we went to this like burrito place, and like she dosed my pump because I was like, hey, you've used this. You've obviously had your rotation. It was awesome. And then fortunately within, I would say about a month-ish, we knew it was going to probably be serious. And so we had the legit talk, but also hilariously, and she brings it up and I actually don't let her live it down. She pulled out like 5 of my pump sites, like in the first month of dating, just from like, oh, hey, it's so good to see you. Let me hug you, Rip. I'm like, cool, thanks. That obviously kind of came to the forefront, but it's also funny in retrospect.
so let's talk about that, because I think part of, removing this stigma is helping people really understand. So somebody has a pump. What do we need to know about hugging them? What questions do we not need to ask, even just understanding? Or what does that conversation end up looking like?
I think the most common thing is always, oh, is that a pager? Because look at it. Like you look at it, you don't know. Like it could be a pager, I guess, except for the wire attached to me. So like,
right. So for everybody, our members can see it on video, but for everybody listening, it does. It looks like, an old school pager with a clip.
Right. And people don't know, right? So if it's someone that you're like, they have diabetes, it's a pump, I wouldn't worry about hugging them. Like obviously it happened that she just happened to snag her arm on the tubing, which happens on doorknobs and happens, in regular life anywhere. Oh no, it just, my pump fell off the table and it rips out of me. Like it happens, it's fine. But the biggest thing is just recognizing if there's a pump, maybe take a quick scan for the wire. Usually the wire should be tucked in. So if it's not, you'll see it. If it is, then you're fine. But I wouldn't really stress too much. If you're not sure what it is, you could be like, hey, is that your insulin pump? Is it a pager? Like kind of what is it? If you're curious, if you even care. And I don't think it's really a big deal for most people. Like when I was a kid, people asked about it way more often than people do now. Nobody cares now.
Yeah. And I think by that point too, you can take the person's lead. If it's choosing a restaurant, for the most part, everybody knows how to navigate the menu for themselves.
Yep. Most of the time. Like if there's someone who's type 1 and celiac, ironically, within the type 1 space, I think it's 8 times more prevalent. So if you have type 1, you have an 8 times higher likelihood of getting celiac than the regular population.
God help.
Yeah, exactly. You may want to, defer to the person or just talk in conjunction. Hey, what might be the type of place? But if someone with diabetes has to navigate a restaurant, if they have the right education, not shouting at us, but shouting at us, you can eat anywhere. There's times I will intentionally go to somewhere and eat the most obnoxious things just to demonstrate it can be done with great blood sugars. So yeah, it can absolutely be done.
For sure. And to the point of all of this, everybody is human. We all have these bodies. They're doing their best at every given moment, and we just support it.
And I think the biggest thing is if whether you're a partner, whether you're a friend, someone has it, just ask them how they want to be supported, right? If they want any support with it. Like there's ways on like continuous glucose monitors where you can have it like linked so you can have up to 5 friends that can see your blood sugars wherever you are. But there's couples I know that they share, like I share mine with Amelia. There's couples I know that don't want to share because they're like, oh, well, if Jimmy's out, west or whatever, I can't do anything. Why do I need to know what his blood sugar is? So it's just a conversation that's personal to everyone. And you just have to have that conversation with whoever you would be close enough to either review your blood sugars or, whatever situation you want to have. Parents and kids may be a different dynamic.
For sure. For sure. But having those conversations is, again, part of removing the stigma, better understanding, and having those relationships for sure.
Yes. And there are times like intimately, like, yes, if your blood sugar is out of whack, it will impact, the happy fun time. We'll leave it at that, right? Like it will absolutely impact that if your number's not in range. So like you have to be aware of it. Your partner should probably be aware of it as well. So
excellent.
Yeah, I can leave it there. I can dive in. It's
right,
completely up. I don't know how family friendly the show is.
Right. Well, I mark them all explicit because I have a potty mouth, but we have we have heart health episodes that go back every February. We have heart health episodes that speak to exactly what we're talking about. That blood sugar balance, metabolic health is all connected.
Oh, yeah. And it's every single aspect of life with diabetes because the blood sugars are everywhere will be impacted. That's why everyone's like, oh, vision or, nerve endings or kidneys, but like everything is impacted.
Yeah.
There's more motivation to have better blood sugars.
Exactly. I was just going to say it doesn't mean you're doomed.
No, not at all. Just stay in range. And everyone's like, oh, if your A1C is under 7, you're fine. I'm like, yes, if your A1C is under 7 and you're not ping-ponging every 5 seconds, you're probably fine. So, yeah.
Nuance. Exactly.
Big nuance.
Right. Final thought, anything we missed before we go to our rapid fire off-topic questions?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, we could be here for like 5 hours with a masterclass on everything, but I feel like we've hit the majority of it. A lot of it is just have the fundamentals down pat and then realize, okay, once you can do that, that's 80 to 85% of the equation. If you have a care team that does well, take advantage of that. If you don't have a care team that does well, find one that will fit your needs. I think that's the biggest thing is most people are like, well, I'm stuck with this team. No, you have choice. You do have a choice.
1,000%. All right. Our rapid fire off-topic questions. First one, what's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week? As we say, the salad and fries of your week.
Oh, this is such a good question. The best thing, and we're just talking the last 7 days only. I know the naughtiest thing I've done has been my sleep has not been on point the way that it should. I think the time change certainly does not help me at all, but I need to get back on my 8 hours and higher game. So that's absolutely the naughty. The best thing I think would be my workouts have been consistent, even when I haven't wanted them to be. And then getting my vitamin D in the sun has been consistent because fortunately we have sun here still.
Nice. If you weren't the founder of Your Diabetes Insider, what would you do?
I've always wondered this, honestly. Man, these are such tough questions. I love it though. If I wasn't with Your Diabetes Insider, I would be an entrepreneur. I just don't know what I'd be doing. I'd be doing something. I'd be developing something probably in the health space to make life easier for people. But it may or may not be diabetes related.
Yeah. Favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise or a fiction book?
Favorite book of all time. Man, and it can't be I guess it could be a business book too.
Mm-hmm.
I really like 48 Laws of Power just because I like all the history stuff in there. I just think it's fascinating and how people just repeat the same thing again and again and again, but maybe it makes me a weirdo. I don't know.
No, I'm with you. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
It's a really tough question. I don't know. That's a challenge. Maybe it would be heart disease. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, obviously, both diabetes for that matter.
Yep.
Put it all out there.
For sure. If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
I don't know. I'm like, these are so hard.
First instinct. Rapid fire. First instinct.
Of all time would probably be super strength.
All right. What's your biggest pet peeve?
When people say Xavier when it's instead of Xavier. Like you don't say xylophone, you say xylophone.
I'm laughing because I get it. All right, last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
I mean, I hate to be the cliche person, but AI integration into how it can make life that much easier. And ideally, with, the different algorithms, everything else, how you can really biohack everything.
Well, Ben Tzeel, thank you for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more, all the things.
So for social media, got lots of entertainment, but also lots of knowledge drops. At Man of Zeal, MANOFTZEEL. I may change it to at Your Diabetes Insider just to be consistent. So stay on the lookout if you can't find it. And then, of course, if you're interested in working with my team and I, we're all dietitians. We all live with diabetes ourselves, and we've all got exercise backgrounds. YourDiabetesInsider.com.
Excellent. We'll put links to everything in the episode notes. So also, if you change your social, we'll update that. You just let us know.
Amazing. So, thank you.
Yes. Thank you again. Just appreciate your energy and passion for helping people. So thank you.
I'm just grateful that we got to have this conversation. I had a lot of fun.
Likewise. All right, friends. On Friday, in this week's bite-sized bonus episode, we're talking about capacity. And I'm sure you're thinking, I'm sorry, what? Right? So as a bit of a hint, it's capacity versus capability. So what does this have to do with all your health efforts? That's exactly what we're going to talk about on Friday in this week's bite-sized bonus episode. So be sure wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button, and then your app will alert you when the Nutrition Nugget goes live on Friday morning. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideofries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. Hearing from you is the highlight of my day. I love hearing your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach. Ben Tzeel, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
Absolutely. And friends, if you are not already, join us in the Happy Healthy Hub. You'll go to asaladwithasideofries.com/membership. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and your health. On top of this week's episode and full video with behind-the-scenes content, your 24/7 Ask Me Anything, you'll get this week's recipe for the easy beef chili. So until next week, remember, diabetes does not mean you're doomed. Just like for all of us, it comes down to quality education, helpful tools, and encouraging support to live your best life.
Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.